Everybody still awake out there? I see some people still there. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I'd just like to thank all of you for putting this together. I'd like to thank Matt Barnes for making it possible for us to come up here and just kind of arranging things that way. And thanks to Dan and Harvey and Carrie and the AGA for putting all this together, and to SRM for hosting us. And I'd also like to mention Nancy Ranney, who's a new president of the Southwest Grass-Fed Livestock Alliance. She was also helpful in getting us here and is recovering from surgery back in North Carolina and just completely beside herself that she can't be here. She loves these things. But I think, is Melvin, are you still here?
Yes.
Melvin Johnson in the back, he's a manager for the Ranney Ranch, and if anyone has any questions or anything later, we can field some of them to Melvin. So, the title here, Walking Backward into the Future, I swear Ed Fredrickson and I did not get together on our titles. I thought it was interesting. We both had the same kind of concept. I think Ed's was harvesting the past for the future. And I'd like to mention, I can't see with that light, but Ed's still here too? Yeah, Ed's one of our board of director members and has also been real helpful with our organization. But just thinking to why we have this title, and there was a Pueblo elder who had this term, and I kind of stole it from him, of walking backward into the future. I know a woman who does green design, and she uses the term moving forward into the past. And what's interesting is throughout the day, it's been great to listen to all these fabulous speakers, fascinating presentations, and there were elements in all of them about how we are reaching back to some of the wisdom of the past to move forward into the future. So that's kind of the concept. And rebuilding the food system infrastructure, we'll get into that a little bit as far as being one of our major challenges. But SWIGLA, as we call ourselves, is a nonprofit alliance. Anyone can join. Our members are, we have a slight majority of producers, which is great. We get a lot of input from our producers, but we also have consumers, land managers, conservationists, researchers, all different types of people who are all united with the common bond of wanting to improve human, ecological, and animal health, strengthen local agriculture communities, and promote grass-fed/local livestock products. And we use the term grass-fed/local because really, realistically, many producers fall along a spectrum which ranges from natural on one end. Maybe they haven't gotten a certification, but they're raising a natural or pasture-raised animal, all the way up to what many would consider a premium designation, which could be certified organic and 100% certified grass-fed through the American Grass-Fed Association. So there we have different titles, different types of labels that people do use. And what we do is we provide support to our producers. We do workshops. We're available to do workshops throughout the Southwest. Again, it's Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and Texas now. And we provide resources for our producers in marketing, production, and finance. We do a public outreach. We had a great tasting in Santa Fe a few years back, which people still keep after me to do another one of those. That was very popular. And we work with stakeholders to facilitate cooperative agreements. Basically, we're looking at all these different people that lie along the value chain, which starts with the producer and ends with the person who eats the final product. So we're working with all those people to try to rebuild our local food infrastructure. So what happens is we're kind of lacking in the middle. We have actually the demand for grass-fed yes, it is going up. The demand for beef in general may be going down, but we're seeing that it just keeps going up. We have this, I don't know how many of you saw Time magazine a couple weeks back. This is what it looked like. And here was this article, Save the Planet, Eat More Beef. And not just beef, but grass-fed. And it was just a thrill to see this. Environmentalists have been giving cows a bad rap in recent years, but what bovines eat and what they excrete, between what bovines eat and what they excrete, cattle production emits a lot of greenhouse gas. But if fed solely grass, cows could play a key role in reversing climate change. It was just awesome to hear that in Time magazine. So people are becoming much more aware of grass-fed. They're beginning to understand what it really means, what all the benefits are, and the demand is high. Our producers are getting better at producing a real quality finished animal. But what we're finding is that the middle area is sorely lacking in many cases. So we have the meat, we have the demand, but we can't seem to connect the dots. So we'll get to that again later. And these are just some examples of some of our producers who really fall across the spectrum. This is the Carrizo Valley Ranch. Sid Goodloe was the first person, I believe, to bring Alan Savory's methods over to the United States, studied with him in Zimbabwe. And this ranch represents just a lifelong project of his to restore this land to the condition it was in before the Civil War. And he's done that through controlled burns and rotational grazing. The James Ranch, David James is here. Hey, David. I don't have a picture. Their ranch is so beautiful, but I chose a picture of the sign because they're a great example of a family enterprise. They've incorporated so many different aspects into their operation now. It was initially a cattle, beef, grass-fed beef, and then the children basically were told that when they came back to the ranch, when they got older, that they needed to have their own enterprise, and so it's expanded. And there's other things too that they do there, like they have a nursery where they grow trees. And there's David. Good-looking guy. This is in Arizona, the Double Check Ranch. Paul Schwenneson, very innovative individual. He's proudly standing back there in front of his biodiesel plant, which is in the back of his processing plant. And it's a very small-scale processing plant, and they convert the fat to biodiesel fuel to run their trucks. They make use of the offal, and they convert that into a very nutrient-dense compost. And then he sells his beef to a number of high-end restaurants in the Tucson and Phoenix area. Cimarron Angus, there's a good example of multi-species grazing. Works well for them, provides them additional source of income. The lamb, they've actually done better with the lamb this year than they expected. And they're in New Mexico, but they do sell a lot of lamb to Colorado markets. The JX Ranch in Tucumcari, that's a Longhorn Charolais cross. And one thing they do to make their ranch viable is they also run a bed and breakfast, and they do riding adventures for advanced riders. And the Soaring Eagle Ranch is in northern New Mexico. Those are Scottish Highlanders. They seem to really like that colder climate. A lot of people like the taste of the meat. There's a future generation of cowboys. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of all this, but why do people buy local grass-fed beef? Flavor, health and safety, the humane issues, and to support agriculture, as well as the whole environmental stewardship concept. Why do people produce local grass-fed? Many of the same reasons. One of the main ones is the opportunity to become a price maker and to have other options, different options of when to breed, what breeds to use, where you want to market your product, and so on. And then some of the same reasons that people choose to eat grass-fed. So here's a good example, kind of shows our whole situation in a nutshell. We took Santa Fe as an example here. So a rancher raises cattle from their cow-calf operation. They sell them at the sale barn. It goes to Kansas, eats wheat from Nebraska and corn from Iowa. Then it goes down to Texas, gets slaughtered down there, goes up to Salt Lake City, gets distributed, comes back to New Mexico. So 3,112 miles later. And what's interesting is that in New Mexico, for example, because we have these statistics, 1% of the beef that is consumed there actually came from the state. So we think there's a lot of opportunity to change that. So what's interesting is even though a very small portion of the meat is consumed locally, there seems to be a tremendous desire. And they did a survey at the state fair this year, and 97% of people surveyed indicated that they had a preference, and this was in New Mexico, they had a preference for New Mexico beef. I think we find the same thing in Colorado, in Arizona, and Utah, and Texas. How much more are they willing to pay? This is really kind of where we're trying to do some work, because sure, they all wanted it, but only 13% were willing to pay 20% or more. So, you know, they're willing to pay more, but they're not as aware of really what's involved and what the product is worth. So we think that's going to improve. So, and processing. This is really what we're dealing with the most right now. We're severely lacking in processing options, and that's why we have this gap between the demand and the supply. We have the beef, we have the consumers, we just don't have anywhere to slaughter them. We don't have anyone to transport it, store it, and market it. So bit by bit, those problems are being addressed. Also the high cost of processing obviously costs a lot more to process in a small scale facility than a large scale, and the stress on the animals and the extensive regulations. We have seen even more of these small scale plants that have been closing. So there is hope. Just a few things I think are reasons why we have to have hope. Is just the whole sustainability factor. It's been brought up all day. As transportation and feed costs continue to go up, as Kit Farrow was pointing out, food safety issues, they keep coming up, and just this whole overall concern for human and animal and environmental health. It all seems to point toward a grass-fed product. Also, it's not just a niche market. A lot of people in the past have been talking about it as a niche market. Alan Williams, for example, of Tallgrass Beef, says that there's a potential of 20 to 25% of the total American beef market. I'm sure we could all debate those numbers, but still, there is a tremendous amount of opportunity for growth. And it seems that a lot of people right now are working with we're going to need to go to a new stage. A lot of the producers who have been doing this for a while, they've been able to sell their beef through farmers markets, maybe CSAs and buyers clubs and restaurants. But there's really not room for everyone to convert to a grass-fed operation and sell it to those same markets. What we're trying to do is tap into the retail market, which is where most of the purchases are made. Another reason for hope is the ecological imperative. It's really just, you know, this whole carbon sequestration thing is just fabulous to see that people are beginning to realize that grazing is not necessarily bad for the environment. And we have ranchers that are now actually quantifying the exact amount of carbon that they're sequestering. So this is what we tell our producers, you know, good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that comes from bad judgment. But I'd like to invite everyone to, I think we have a few flyers still out there, but we welcome everyone to join our organization and visit our website, grassfedlivestock.org. And if there are any more questions, I guess I can take them later. Thanks.